we are talking about how to go about actually creating a Japanese style resume. For all the foreigners in Japan, there's a lot of jazz about the rules to be followed about creation of a Japanese resume. Yes, it can be technical, but foreigners can manage creating one. So how do you actually go about creating a Japanese style resume? A Japanese style resume is required to be prepared by every job applicant who wants to apply for a job in Japan, be it a full-time position, a part-time position, or a contract-based position. A resume is a document showcasing a job applicant's work history, the educational background, hobbies and specialities, skills, certifications, and a lot more. It is the first impression that the employer has of a job applicant. So how do you actually manage to make a good first impression on the Japanese employer? Let's go about learning all of these rules one by one. A Japanese style resume can be both handwritten or the one which is typed on computer. Both the ways have their own pros and cons. The one which is created on a computer and the job applicant has typed is a much easier way to create a resume. It saves time and it is actually really easy to edit. But the one that is actually handwritten by a foreigner, it can be difficult at times to write down that complete resume. Firstly, because it's difficult to edit again and again. And then secondly, there are a lot of kanjis, which is the Japanese script, which has a lot of red letters and a lot of different readings. So if one goes about handwriting a Japanese style resume, it also gives the employer an impression that the job applicant is really motivated to join the company and has genuinely put in the time and effort to create that resume. But if the handwriting is bad, it can actually rub off on the employer in the wrong way, and it gives the employer an impression that the person is not really serious about getting the job. They do not respect making a first impression on the employer. If the company you are applying to requires you to use computers at work, then it is better to create a resume on a computer. Otherwise, you can handwrite the resume. But because we are today in 2022, most of the employers expect you to create a typed resume on a computer, which can easily be edited. There are many rules when it comes to creating a Japanese style resume, and it can actually be very tricky for foreigners, especially the ones who don't know Japanese. So stay tuned with us to the end of this video as we will cover all of those rules one by one, and hopefully it will elevate your job hunt in Japan. Before starting to write a Japanese style resume, remember that the date format that you use in your Japanese style resume should be consistent throughout. It shouldn't be that you're using one format at one section in the resume and some other date format in the other. Most of the Japanese style resumes these days are using Roman numerals to express the year. Let's say this is year 2022. So the applicant should be writing 2022 in Roman numerals, but it is actually Reiwa 4 in Japan. So whichever format you choose to write on your resume, both formats are acceptable. But remember, if you choose to pick up a format, be consistent throughout. The first section is that of the full name of the job applicant. While writing your full name, remember to leave a space between your first name and your last name. If you are a Japanese national creating a Japanese style resume, then write your kanji for your name as registered. If you are a foreign national, write according to the name which is printed on your residence card. If the word furigana is written in hiragana, then you need to write the furigana for your name in hiragana. And otherwise, if the word furigana is written in katakana, then write your name in katakana. Furigana is basically the reading for your name when converted your name from English to Japanese. The next is the date section. If you are sending your resume to a Japanese employer via post, then you need to write down the date you will be sending it by post. If you're sending it by email or you're sending it when you have an interview, then you need to write the date of the interview. If you are sending your resume to multiple Japanese employers, then remember to keep the date of the resume up to date accordingly. The next section is that of the date of birth. Now, the Japanese style resumes actually require you to mention both your date of birth and your age. Write your date of birth in the format of year, month, and day of birth. Remember to update your age accordingly as in when you apply to different companies. Next is the section where you mention your gender. Encircle the space according to your gender, a female or a male. Next is the address section. In the address section, you need to write your zip code first and then your address below it. please write down the city, town, and the prefecture name. Instead of writing down your address in just the numeric form, as it is considered to be informal, write down your address as it is shown on the screen right now. Now, the Japanese style resume, like many other resume styles, asks you for your permanent and your temporary address. Enter the temporary address only if you want the company to contact you at this address, otherwise mention same as above. The next section is of the contact number. In many Japanese homes, even today, you have Japanese telephone or landline numbers. But as a foreigner, it's really difficult to actually have a Japanese landline or a telephone number. So this section can actually be skipped. If you also do not have a mobile number, then it's not really necessary to write one. You can skip this section too. In the email address section, try entering the email that you use very often. The email addresses usually used in Japan include Gmail, Yahoo, Outlook, SoftBank, and Docomo. The next is the photograph section. The photograph shouldn't be any more than 3 months old. The length of the photograph should be 3.6 centimeters to 4 centimeters, and the width of the photograph should be 2.4 centimeters to 3 centimeters. Your photograph should be taken from the chest up. If you're taking your photograph at home, then make sure that you have a white background behind. Your mouth should be closed and the corners of your mouth should be stretched a little like this. Giving a very stern expression can look very rude to the company, so just be cautious of the expression you have when you're getting the photograph clicked. The dress code while you get the photograph clicked should be formal. Men can usually carry suits and the women as well. The color should not be very flashy. Women with long hair should basically tie their hair so that the photo does not look messy. Next is the educational background section. In this section, you need to mention all of your educational qualifications from the time of high school. You need to enter your entrance and your graduation dates. Also, all of the details of the Japanese language schools you've attended, the vocational schools you've attended, and the universities you've attended should be entered here. For vocational schools and universities, you can also write down your faculties, departments, and majors. If in case you are a dropout, then remember to mention your reason for dropout of school or university, such as dropout because of personal reasons, dropout because of health concerns. And as a foreigner, you can also be very worried about whether you should be mentioning your dropout dates or reasons or not. But remember, you need to be as honest as possible, because if the Japanese employers figure out that you have been lying, they might just debar you from taking the interview, or they might not even take a look at your resume. If you are a student at the moment, then remember to mention your scheduled or expected graduation date. The next section is that of the work experience or the employment history section. You need to mention about whatever jobs you've done till date, but if the work period was less than 3 months, you need not mention that work experience specifically. But if your work experience was at least for 6 months, it should be mentioned here. You need to write the name of the company you've worked at, be it any part-time or full-time job. Remember to write the complete company name and not omitting any word in between. If it was a part-time experience, work experience that you have had in the past, then write down part-time job alongside the name of the company you've worked at in the past. About the retirement reasons, if you've retired because of personal reasons, then write down retired because of personal reasons. If not, then write down retired because of company reasons. To mention and tell about the current state of your career, write down at present at the end of the work experience section. If you're currently working and you have a fixed date of retirement, then write down that fixed date of retirement at the end of this section too. The next section is that of the licenses and qualifications. Licenses and qualifications are together written in the same section in a Japanese style resume. But first, one should be writing the licenses and then the qualifications. All of the exams that you have taken in the past, all of the licenses that you hold can be written down in this section. Remember to write the full name of the exams or the certifications or the degrees you've held so that the interpretation is not misunderstood by the employer. There are certain abbreviations that are accepted worldwide, but still it is difficult to understand them when it's read by a foreigner. So remember to write the complete name of the certification. For example, instead of writing down JLPT N3, you should be writing down Japanese Language Proficiency Test Level N3. Similarly, normal car first class driving license should be written instead of writing down just a driving license. If you have many licenses and certifications, try prioritizing writing down those certifications or licenses that are relatable to the company's business that you're applying to for a job. But if you think that according to you there is a certain certification that might give you an edge over the other applicants, then it is completely okay to write it down in this section. For example, you're studying for JLPT N1 but you do not actually hold the certification for one. You can write down studying for JLPT for personal growth. Try avoiding writing down something that actually has a weak appeal. Let's say, for example, if you've taken the TOEIC exam, you should mention it only if you have scored at least 600 points in the exam. The next section is that of the hobbies and skills. You can try having a lot of fun with this section. A lot of people leave this section blank, but because you can actually showcase your personality to the Japanese employer in this particular section, you should try writing at least something in this section. This can also help you initiate a conversation other than the business with the employer and make you stand out in front of the employer amongst other candidates. Let's just say you're interested in soccer, maybe, and then you can write it down as interested in soccer, and maybe playing soccer and soccer is your hobby. This can basically help you create a story when you're talking to the employer. Try avoiding stuff like pachinko and gambling, which makes the employer have a negative perception of you from the beginning. The next section is that of the applicant's requests and wishes. In this section, you can basically write down something as, I'll follow the company rules and regulations. But something like the expected annual income of maybe 3 or 4 million yen should be absolutely avoided, as this might not even make you reach the interview stage with the employer. But if there are certain conditions about the type of job position you're looking for and certain conditions that you can absolutely not give up on, then they can definitely be mentioned in this particular section of your Japanese style resume. These conditions will also help a better facilitation of the interview, as the employer will be able to better gauge you and the type of job you're looking for. In this section, you can usually mention the timings you are comfortable being contacted by the company, or the mode of contact, let's say on via a telephone call or via an email. This is usually meant for the working students. The possible dates of joining the company can also be mentioned in this section. This will help better facilitate the interview screening stages, as the employer will be able to better gauge the current situation you are in. The next section is that of the commute time. You need to write down the commute time in 5-minute increments. If the time exceeds 1 hour, then you need to write it down as 1 hour 5 minutes, 1 hour 10 minutes, and so on. If your commute time is less than 1 hour, then you need to write it down as 0 hours 45 minutes, 0 hours 50 minutes, and so on. The next section is that of the dependents. In this section, you are basically supposed to enter the number of people dependent on you. When it comes to dependency, it generally means the number of dependents on you when it comes to health insurance. If you don't have any dependents, just write 0 in this section. So that's it for creating a Japanese style resume. A Japanese style resume can actually be really exhausting and not that fun to create. But if you are really looking forward to get into a company which is very reputable, then you should be careful about creating a Japanese style resume according to the rules. We hope that you really study well, and thank you so much for staying tuned to the end of this video, and we hope you have an amazing work life in Japan, and we really hope that this video actually helps you elevate your job hunt in Japan. And if you really like this video, share it with just one person, and don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button at the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye bye.